The power suit may have lost its power. This is the focus group.
It's the savvy side of 9 to 5. Listen.
Bueller.
Laugh. And learn.
Negotiation. This is what you do in business.
This is the focus group with Tim Bennett.
Staunch.
And John Nash.
Keep your clothes looking neat and clean.
We're all business. Except when we're not.
Welcome to the focus group. John Nash here with my good friend and co-host, Mr. Tim Bennett. Mr. Tim Bennett. Find us here every Wednesday live on Facebook and YouTube. Of course, all our media is available at focusgroupradio.com. That includes our video and the audio version of the video, which is our audio podcast, including the once a week on Tuesdays, Unbuttoned, about 20 minutes, 3 stories, political, things that kind of... Tim said it the other day. It's a different version of Caught Our Eye, I suppose, but a little more...
3 stories we think need attention.
Pointed, yeah, it needs attention. So again, focusgroupradio.com, and welcome to the show. I want to thank Garrett and Steve in the booth, and I think we have Robbie Bobby back there. So remember, it's RB, Robbie Bobby. Because one day he's like, no, it could be Bobby. No, it has to be RB, Robbie Bobby.
Robert Barnes.
Like RB, Robert Barnes, exactly.
Oh.
So, Mr. Bennett.
Did you watch the debate last night?
I saw parts of it, and actually the
Democrat debate.
Chunks of it that were fascinating to me was when they talked about the dangers of automation and what that's going to do to the labor market. And what did you think? In general, what did you think? Well, there you go.
I don't think there's anybody that's exciting. And or that is going to, as much as there's craziness on the other side that we all see, and hypocrisy and all those other things taking place, I really think Joe Biden is showing his age. He seems to be lost. He seems to be stumbling with trying to get messaging out. Elizabeth Warren, she wants to give away the House. She went through this one whole litany of stuff, and the people I was with, mouths just open, and I was like, thanks, comrade, because it's free school and free this and free that and free this and free that and free this and free that. And Biden did say that would cost you, if you took every single dollar away from the Pentagon, for instance. He said $1 trillion. You can't pay for it all. And then doing a value-added tax, I think, is absolutely wrong.
A VAT?
VAT tax is what they have in Europe and what they have in Canada. So all your goods would be taxed an additional 9 to 14% of what you purchase. So
in foreign countries that have a VAT tax, that's the only tax? Or are they taxed and then
there's other taxes.
Oh, okay.
It's a tax on a tax. It's a value-added tax.
All right.
So... Now, if they say, well, you're not going to have to pay for health care or whatever, that may be one thing. But I just don't find – I like Buttigieg. I don't think maybe somebody will ask him to be VP. But it seems to be –
He did shine through last night.
Yeah, it's Biden. And I thought Amy Klobuchar, who I think is very –
well, she's already in Congress.
Milquetoast. So, yeah. But she actually did well last night. But it seems to be Warren, Sanders, and Biden as the top tier, then followed by Buttigieg, Kamala
Harris,
the rest.
And yeah. So on Morning Joe, they were talking about Claire McCaskill was on, and they specifically said to her, and they had Pete Buttigieg on, and she said, people call you centrist, I call you pragmatic. And what I think is missing in some of this, the Democratic stuff, is who are the candidates that are appealing to Republicans who or new independents or Republicans that are leaning away from this administration, who are in favor of a lot of things, but they're not going to be in favor of full freight for school.
No.
And they also know that that you just can't stand on a stage and promise health care for all. It actually has to be, there's got to be a plan. It's got to be paid for. I don't think
eliminating all the college debt. All those.
Here's an example. I don't think everybody loves their private insurance. There's a lot made about this bullshit. I love my private insurance. I think you have it. You could rely on it for a few things, but there are many people that get caught in snafus on private.
I got caught with snafus because the doctor requested I spend the night after my back surgery. I got socked with a $6,000 hospital bill. My insurance didn't cover because they said it wasn't authorized. I was under anesthesia.
They lifted your hand up and they.
I mean, drag me home for $6,000 to give me an aspirin and let me sleep there and hear the lunatics in the asylum all night. No, our insurance in the pharmaceutical business and the companies, I get all that. It's a mess, and we need to fix it. But I don't see how. I just don't see the Democrats breaking through on some of this stuff.
No, and you know.
And one more thing, I will say that Camilla, is that how you say it? Kamala, whatever. I don't need a lecture from her about women's bodies and the Supreme Court and all that stuff. You all didn't go out and vote. Women did not vote. A lot of minority women did not vote. And Hillary Clinton and everybody said this is more about the Supreme Court than anything else. So what? You got the court you voted for because you didn't vote. So now don't start lecturing me and lecturing everybody that they're taking away women's rights. It's called tough shit. You didn't go out and vote. Now you got to live with it.
Yeah, I don't think that's a very popular point of view.
Right? That's what happened. People stayed home. People didn't like Hillary, and they were not overly thrilled with Trump, and so they didn't vote. There were mass amounts of people. Trump only won by 78,000 votes. So think about all the people that stayed home as a protest or voted for Jean, whatever her name was, or the crazy third candidate, or for Bernie, or they were protest votes. So guess what? You got the Supreme Court that you voted for, which was nothing. So don't lecture me now about how horrible things are going. This is the government you put in.
Yeah. Hey, look, I've had this discussion with people, especially when it comes to women's reproductive rights.
We all believe a woman should decide what they want to do with their body, but don't go up there and lecture now about how upset you are about what's going on when you did not energize the base to get out and vote in the last go round of elections.
That's true, and I was just going to cap off what you were saying by Moody's investors recently did an election year poll. And it's based on three dynamics: the stock market, the economy, and I forget the third one. But it's been right 90% of the time in terms of presidential elections. And their prediction is they've already figured out the electoral college numbers that Trump will win again. If you were looking at it solely on economy and the stock market performance, it's a shoo-in.
Yeah.
And the other thing about the Trump administration, and I think the Democrats are missing this, is I think it was John Kasich said the other day, the Democrats have to stop talking about Trump and the impeachment in Ukraine. They got to start putting actual things in front of voters. Like, I have a plan.
Give me a reason to vote for you.
Yeah,
right.
I want to go and reduce prescription drugs by this much. It's going to take a year to do it, whatever it is. But I hear from a lot of people the frustration that they have is that it doesn't matter if it was Trump that won the presidency, if it could have been anybody else. They just want someone to do something. But look at what's going on in the Senate and the House. It's just a mess.
Nothing to report.
Moscow Mitch has got everything shut down on the Senate side. Comrade McConnell.
Comrade McConnell. Mass massacre Mitch. No, there's the gun bills. All this stuff is just sitting there. Apparently, they're all meeting today at the White House. So,
who is?
The Republicans and the senior leadership on the Republican and Democrat side are going to school him about Turkey and Syria. They said it was going to be a frosty meeting, so we'll see what happens.
It's over. And that brings up another great thing about when Trump, part of his campaign, and it wasn't rhetoric. This is one of his promises he claimed he was going to keep was, let's get out of the forever wars, the endless wars. Inherent in that statement, as one columnist said that I read the other day in the Washington Post, he said, inherent in that statement, there's winners and losers. For us to get out of a war, we have to say we're leaving, and that leaves an ally stranded, like the Kurds. But this guy said in the Washington Post, he goes, to the vast majority of Americans who have been listening and watching this endless loop and trying to figure out, well, who are the Kurds and what, like all the regional stuff. He said a lot of Americans just don't care. It didn't impact other people. Like the impacts of those regional conflicts, we don't feel necessarily, unless it's a terrorist attack, like an ISIS thing.
The only way we would care is if they brought the draft back and everybody had skin in the game. So if everybody, regardless of class and socioeconomic ability, you had to go
Had to serve.
to fight.
Like in Israel, everybody has to serve on. Yeah.
It would not be so easy to just say we're going to somebody else to do it. And I think Barnacle said it, right? He said it's not going to be the kid from Greenwich, Connecticut, or from
Maybe the senator's son.
somebody from Iowa has volunteered because they've decided they're going to be patriotic, or that it was a way for them to better themselves as fighting these wars. And there's so many families that the wars just haven't touched them.
No.
I mean, the fact that we've been in Afghanistan for almost 20 years now, and the Syrian conflict. So I don't disagree. I don't think anybody would disagree by saying, let's fix our infrastructure, let's take care of things at home, let's get our schools right, all the health care right. But you also have to be smart about it. You don't just abandon. And Turkey's supposedly a NATO ally. The whole thing to me is just...
Erdogan, yeah, that whole Erdogan is no one's friend. I mean,
except Putin now. The Iranians.
I know people whose families live in Turkey. They're very westernized individuals. They're Turkish, but their families literally are like constantly on the verge of saying, "How do we get out of here? How do you move the money out? How do you get out?" But they're still there. One of them's an academic. Strange stuff. So. Bob's niece, Catherine, stayed with us this past weekend, and sister Sue was visiting as well. And she was going to look at Skidmore, where I think Aaron McHugh went.
Yeah.
So it's the college tour weekend.
Used to be women's college.
Hobart was another school.
Hobart Williams. Hobart.
Hobart Williams, yeah. So where's that at?
New York.
Genesee? Like, is
Yep, exactly right.
Towards Rochester or something? So we were talking about her college essays, and Tim...
How'd she decide on colleges? So she's looking...
She lives in San Francisco. She
Right.
did not want to go to school on the West Coast.
So she didn't want to go up to Oregon, or...
She's I think as a safety, she's applying to some of the college... The price difference is amazing. If she's a resident of California, she should really look at some of the California schools. But she wanted seasons, and she wanted to be on the East Coast. We were talking about something called the Common Application. Have you heard of this?
Yeah.
You know about this from your, because you were at, you sat on your alumni board.
Right
with
at Marietta, yeah. Everybody
I had never
uses
heard of this,
Common.
but the Common Application is for basic information.
Right.
And then different schools have different things. She began to read to me. She had to do 3 essays for one school. Each essay had to be 150 words or less. That's not an essay. That's like a...
Well, that's hard to do. You know, the shorter something is, the harder it is
brevity,
to get your point across.
She read something about a moment that where things did not go as she thought they would, and it changed her perspective of the world or something. And I'm like, and you have to do this in 150 words? I'm going to say this right now, that if I were that age again and I were facing the college admissions thing, it's a job by itself. It's a job. Do we have to do this? I don't remember.
You have to do essays.
I remember an essay, but it wasn't like, it was of your choosing usually, or maybe there was a broad topic.
I think things were a lot, I think students now, at least my experience with the students that I've encountered or been involved with, and I'm using Marietta and a few other little schools that I've been in touch with students from, I think kids are a lot more serious now than when we were in school.
Way more serious.
And I think the academic rigor is a bit more to it. I look at some of these kids and what they're doing, I'm thinking I wouldn't even get in here now. Knowing what they're doing and the sort of kind of research and things they're doing, to me seems to be
you nailed it, and tough. I'm not even sure that the SATs play a role other than an annoyance test you got to take, because apparently some of this stuff, they're
going away. They're not even looking at it.
After school activities, her plans, but as what 18 years old? Are you 17, 18 freshman
year? 17, 18.
The questions they were asking about career, and one of the essays was, tell us about how you will live a life of consequence. So she looks at me and she says, Uncle John, she goes, what does that even mean? I said, well, a life of consequence means that you contributed, you made a difference, you helped somebody. I said, it's a pretty broad thing. I said, you could say that Marie Curie led a life of consequence because she discovered,
She never knew she was going to do that. You
know,
don't
exactly.
say at 18, I decide I'm going to
love life of consequence.
I'm going to create world peace.
So then we had dinner, and then we were having dessert, and then the conversation shifted to sexual orientation and gender. And I was... So, all these applications, there's a whole big section now for pronouns. She literally shows us, and it's like you have to choose me, I, she, he. You have to check off the pronouns you want to be known by. And
that had to be Skidmore. That's right up there with Wesley.
Apparently, according to Catherine, it's on a lot of the applications now. And then it kind of evolved further to her mother, Susan, saying parenting nowadays is a very different thing because kids, it's a different world. And Catherine was asking me and Bob about, like, when did we know we were gay? And how did that affect school? And I'm like, well, it did and it didn't, because back when your uncle was younger, I said, you didn't talk about it. If you figured it out, you needed to keep your mouth shut because it's not like what we have today, right? So what we have today, though, seems to be almost as confusing as when we were younger. I don't want to equivocate the two, but now you're presented with a wealth of things. Where are you on the spectrum? What's,
Well, and there's gay characters on TV, which we didn't really have, you assumed, but...
Yeah, well, Dr. Smith on Lost in Space was definitely a role model.
Charles Nelson Riley or Gomer Pyle.
on the...
What does she want to study?
She wants to go into medicine eventually. So she's kind of puzzling about this whole 4-year thing because she knows it's going to be 6 or whatever
So did she look at school she got in already, or she's yet to apply to?
She's applying while touring.
Looking, okay.
And I did say to her, Tim often talks about, and she knows who you are because they listen to the show, and I said, Tim often talks about the smart tactic of choosing a good community college, get your basic curriculum done for the 2 years, and really nail it, do really well, and then go to one of the schools of your choosing for the last 2. And she's actually thinking her fallback plan may be the California school system for the core curriculum.
You get your biology 101 and your English 101.
I will say the only thing that I told her this, I said the only thing that does do is it eliminates 2 very formative years on campus. So maybe core curriculum's kind of bullshit on one level, but you're going through a lot of different things as a young adult.
Meeting people and
negotiating friendships and all that stuff. So
there's something to be said. You and I were fortunate enough to be at 4-year schools where we were away. And it does. I remember you and I going home and seeing some of our high school friends that did not go away. And there's a vast difference between how much you and I had matured, or kids who had gone away to school had matured, versus kids that stayed around. Just because you didn't have any fallback and there was no cell phone, no nothing. You need your laundry done. You need to figure out how you're going to eat. You need to get a job on campus. You need to make money to survive during the school year.
Yeah,
there was no
that's
mommy
a
and
funny
daddy.
thing you just brought up about our high school friends that didn't go away. It was kind of like a vector, and as the years went by, the gap between them and us, it grew wide actually, because they stayed in the town. It was very insular. So that was a kind of a fun visit. It was we call it a drive-by shooting because they came late in the afternoon on Sunday and left very early on Monday morning for Skidmore. But it was a great time, and she's a beautiful young lady, very poised and
Well, I have 2 friends. I don't know what kind of medicine she wants to go into, but I have 2 friends that went to Skidmore that are both pretty well-renowned podiatrists in Chicago.
Really?
So it does have a very good pre-med program.
So I didn't even realize that's why she was looking at it.
When you said she
right.
wanted to go into medicine, I have a couple of friends that are well regarded within the podiatry profession, and they both had gone to Skidmore and majored in pre-med, and then went on to med school in Pennsylvania.
I wonder, I should ask her what next time I see her or when I text her, because that's one of the things they do, right, is I want to figure out what she wants. But she really likes the idea of curing people, helping people, medicine. As you said earlier in this conversation we were having, I don't really remember. I'm going to sound so cheesy when I say, when I went to school, I chose Binghamton as the fallback because I had a film program. Because at the time, I wanted to be a special effects technician, which didn't exist.
But you still do.
I guess that's why I love animation and all that stuff. But that was a job that barely existed and no one was teaching it. So you had to kind of make it up as you went along. But so that was my weekend and part of the week.
So is she just looking at these 2 schools back east, or should she have some more?
There's a couple more. Yeah. There's a couple more.
It's
and we're talking 60, 70,000.
I was just going to say it's I don't know, and that goes back to the whole issue about the cost of education. It really is out of reach for so many people anymore, unless you get full scholarship or you've got some sort of athletic ability that a particular school wants for you. But I don't know how I'm not sure if I had children, I'd be able to afford to send them to the schools that maybe I'd like them to go to, just because it's. Well, we have friends. We have friends who've done that have drained their retirement to
Or they have
send kids to school.
It's not that they drained it; they didn't put into it.
Yeah.
So I know of people too who have suspended all retirement contributions for a 5 or 6 year, maybe even 7 year period to get that chunk of money.
Yep.
Well, those 7 years and the cumulative dollar to, the dollar cost averaging the whole bit, that's a big loss.
Well, there's no guarantee. I had a friend of mine that works at one of the, I won't mention the name, but one of the Ivy League schools, and he said that a lot of parents are coming in wanting guarantees. I'm gonna pay upwards of $300,000 or $400,000 for my son or daughter to go here for 4 years. What's the guarantee?
Yeah.
Well, there isn't one.
Yeah, I know.
So what kind of? There isn't one.
So if you had to do
guarantee you're going to get into the
do it
best
over again,
grad school or
like you and I, did we even apply to some of the? Did you apply to like some of the Ivy Leagues at all? I don't even remember.
I wanted to. I had a cousin that had gone to Dartmouth.
Dartmouth's a good school.
And I wanted to go to Dartmouth, but
I love the name, by the way.
But I knew my SATs would not even get me close. He later on yelled at me for not applying because he was on the trustees or whatever. But even if I got in, my family couldn't afford it. I mean, there's no way
I put ourselves through schools.
Right. I mean, I'd wanted to go to Syracuse. I couldn't afford Syracuse.
Well, Syracuse
was expensive. It was expensive when we were in the end. It was $13,000 or $14,000, and I had no aid.
That's before campus expenses,
right.
Books, food.
So,
okay.
but that's so, which I ended up at going to UConn, or paid my deposit at UConn, but then took the fateful ride out to Ohio with Marianne and Jennifer. Ended up at Marietta and got a great scholarship and nice financial aid package. So
hey, look, Binghamton was cheaper than UConn.
Yeah,
you and I were
UConn was outrageous. University of Connecticut
at Stores, the main campus. I remember when Binghamton accepted me, I was like through the roof because it was the second best state school in the country. Stanford was above it.
Well, it still is a great.
And do you know? Here's another thing that I think I might have mentioned to you on a text or an email. I never toured Binghamton.
Yeah, you had said that you'd never been there.
In fact, my parents were. I mean, the world's smallest violin's going to play. They were totally absentee in this. I didn't get taken to any campus, except for Hart School of Music outside of Hartford, where Lisa went, maybe. But the first time I rolled up to Binghamton was the first time I ever saw that campus. Wow. Which is, when you think, I just hit me. I'm like, wow, I never did the college tour thing because it was either going to be, I was accepted at all 5 schools. One of them I wanted to go to was RIT, was Rochester Institute of Technology for Film. Kodak was a big funding back then. But I remember reading somewhere that the winters in Rochester were like brutal.
As opposed to Binghamton?
Well, Binghamton was bad, but No,
I looked at Babson, I looked at Bentley, and I looked at a bunch of those schools too. But I really wanted to go to Syracuse, was kind of where I wanted to go. But
Bob and his sister Sue went to Syracuse. They both went.
It all ended up, I'm glad I went to college where I did. If I were to do it again, I've told you this, and I always recommend this to people. I've talked to people about this. I've hired kids that have done this. We laugh about the one woman I hired from Yale who majored in birdhouse architecture.
Nothing but a big party with a $100,000 cover.
Another guy from Harvard that majored in Scandinavian studies. I'm like, how did you pick these things? And another guy, animal husbandry. I'm like, what? How animals mate? Because these schools have every single program in the world. It'd be like your friend who teaches German, right? If you said you wanted to go to Williams College
to learn
major German,
you're in.
Oh my gosh!
Because the program has slots wide open,
full of professors, right? That they want to keep. That they need students to in the funnel. But what kid is going to school now to learn German literature? So if you pick some obscure major at one of these Ivy Leagues and you talk to the professors or you talk to the faculty heads or whatever, so much smarter than say, I want to major in business.
And you know what's brilliant about that idea? And this is like a strategic decision. We have found in our long careers in business that whatever you studied in college has zero to do with what you're doing 4 or 5 years later. It's the name of the school. So if you got into Yale, let's say.
For birdhouse
architecture. 3 years later, doesn't matter. What was your degree in? I got my degree from Yale. You don't have to say birdhouse.
Yale. I said I got a bachelor's of arts or an engineering degree. I said, and I remember asking her. I said, birdhouse architecture. I'm like, it's 4 pieces of wood nailed together in a roof. And she laughed. She said, listen, I'm the only one from my high school. She goes, I got in because of sports in my high school, and She was smart enough or somebody told her how to play the game. We didn't know how to play the game.
No. Well, we were barely paying attention. We were playing games.
That or get a Wyoming email box.
We were-
get
we
a
were-
Wyoming post office box. That's another thing when schools look for diversity. Pick some obscure state. I'm from South Dakota. You're in.
I want to go back in time and change it all now.
Right?
All right, moving on. What caught your eye?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
Well, everybody knows that the straw's been a problem.
Supposedly. The straw is right up there with that thing that holds a six-pack of soda together because the dolphins
I
get
cut
there.
them all the time.
Yeah.
I cut them in little pieces
them,
so
yeah.
that they don't get around the birds' necks. So the pasta straws now are a big thing. They started in Italy. They're called strudels. So the Italians are getting rid of all the plastic straws, and they're using these strudels, they're calling them.
Are they made of
They're
pasta?
made in England. It's pasta, so they're pasta straws. And they say they're actually better than paper because paper could take up to 60 days to break down in a landfill. And these strudels, actually, they said they're vegan. They can be easily resized to fit any
I love
drink.
this.
Although they're not recommended for hot beverages unless you want a noodle soup. But you shouldn't use a straw in any hot beverage because you burn yourself. So they said they decompose overnight. After use without any extra action, far shorter than the average breakdown of paper, which can take up to 60 days. They're recommended, I said, for cold
How do we
drinks.
find strudels?
They're flavorless. They're biodegradable. And they said that the technology's been around forever. And you can buy them by the box. So right now you can get a box of 12 for $4, which is too high of a price.
All for $4?
You get 100 for 15, but so this company is trying to make them less expensive as they catch on, because essentially it's just a bucatini noodle that's been long.
Essentially, it's a what? Seriously?
Bucatini, Bucatini.
And they just extrude it, cut it.
Yep, and they said there's a total of 500 million plastic
Garrett,
straws a
You
year.
got something to say about this? Have you tried this?
I drank a mojito out of this last weekend.
Whereabouts?
Seriously?
I was in Portugal, and we went to a bar and we got a mojito, and they had a big pasta straw in it.
Now here's my question. Well, I've sucked on a piece of hard pasta before. And it gets a little mushy.
This was really hard though, and at least I kind of sucked the mojito down, so I wasn't like sipping
hanging
it.
around.
Yeah. So, but it didn't get soft. I was thinking that too, but it didn't.
Because I always thought the flavor with the flour, because it's made out of flour, I always thought it'd get pasty or gooey. But they said in the U.S. we use 500 million plastic straws a day.
Wow.
500 million a day. So this is a great thing. I think it's a great idea. So is that the first time you tried one?
First time, yeah. It was weird. I thought it was maybe like a weird Portugal thing or something, but no, it wasn't.
Yeah, they said it started in Italy, so I'm wondering when it's going to make its
And
way
Garrett,
here.
Portugal? How
Portugal.
cool. How long were you there for?
8 days.
Did you have a good time?
Yeah, it was fun.
I hear it's a beautiful country.
It really was.
Did you
yeah.
stay just in Portugal or you go to Spain?
No, we flew into Lisbon, then stayed in the Algarves the whole
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Yeah, so southern Portugal.
I didn't even know you did this.
With your girlfriend?
With my girlfriend. Yeah, remember I told you guys, and then Tim was like, "You're gonna propose?"
Oh, that's
No.
the trip. That's the trip. Yeah.
I bet she's disappointed.
Probably.
She got a pasta straw out of it.
Get used to it.
She got a pasta straw out of it. Though.
So was it only the one place you saw the pasta straws?
One place, yeah, it was. We got let off on this like little island. There was a beach bar, and we went there, and it was like $4 mojitos, and you got a pasta straw.
It's
in
a
there.
great idea.
I think it's a great idea. Yeah, and I'm glad that Garrett tried it. So, can you get these here in the U.S.? Did you say that?
Well, there's a company in England that's marketing them called Strudels, and that's where they said that that's when they gave
Gosh,
the price.
I wonder if you can get them on Amazon.
They've got to be. Well, they've got to be. And you can buy them off the web too. It says that we want to inspire the world and show how easy it is to do good with just one strudel at a time. The website reads, with strudels, you don't have to change your behavior and compromise your drinking experience. And but I think once they can get the price down, I can imagine a lot of restaurants using these.
Like a pound of pasta costs $1 in the store.
Right. So why would
Yeah.
why would a box cost $4?
Yeah.
Then you just throw them down, then heat them up and have a dinner.
I think the cool drink keeps it from getting soft too.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
a deal.
That helps. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to try it. I've bitten off the ends of a licorice stick, like a Twizzler, and
You like
drank out of
licorice,
that.
yeah.
But it gets kind of gooey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Tim's way of saving the whales.
Save the whales. So that's what caught my eye.
Mine's super short. I think yours wins the cake or the prize today. I love that. And I wrote it down because I think I want to look for those. Strudels and try to find them. The headline really did this for me. Student buried by avalanche develops seizures triggered by Sudoku. You know that game, Sudoku? Sudoku?
Sudoku.
The grid of 9 by 9, 3 by whatever. So
That's when everything has to add up, right?
yeah. A 25-year-old avid skier suffered brain damage after surviving an avalanche. So this young guy was on a ski trip in 2015. He's a German student. He was overcome and buried by an avalanche, and he actually was buried for up to 15 minutes where he was deprived of oxygen. He was rescued, so good outcome. But after his rescue, he started experiencing muscle twitches following the accident, and the muscles around his mouth would twitch while talking, as would his leg muscles during walking. So it wasn't constant, but he would have neurological issues. However, the student later realized his left arm shook uncontrollably when he concentrated on Sudoku puzzles, states the case. Doctors think that, and they mapped his brain, and they figured out that when he would go into problem-solving mode for the Sudoku, it was to a part of the brain that was damaged, and he would start shaking uncontrollably. So they're like, well, what do we do? And guess what the prescription was?
Don't do Sudoku.
Don't. That was the doctor's, right? Doctor says, okay, you want the seizures to stop? Stop doing Sudoku or whatever. It was Sudoku, whatever that's pronounced.
Have you done those puzzles?
I've tried and I gave up.
They drive me crazy. Well, you and I don't like numbers.
We like numbers when it relates to our bank account and a few other things. But
I never understood. You're supposed to add up. Everything's supposed to add up the same.
Grid, yeah.
Do you all play those puzzles?
It's 1 through 9 is in each box.
Yes,
and then each
right.
row in each column.
1 through 9.
So it's not adding, it's just figure. Only number one can be in a row or a column kind of thing, or a box.
I don't. If you play, do you play it?
You played it in Portugal with the pasta straw and the mojito.
I don't even know how to do the stupid thing. I thought everything had to add up to the same,
here.
and I could never get it to work. No wonder why I don't know what I'm doing.
Each row has to have a single digit 1 through 9 only. So there can't be a 1 in 2 number ones in the same row.
So why don't you just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9?
Because each column has to have 1 through 9 too, without repeating, and then there's 9 boxes. It's made up of each of those 9 boxes.
Oh, it's not just 9 boxes.
Yeah.
Basically, what he's saying is it's stupid. Don't play it. That's what I got.
Yeah, I'll stick with solitaire. Thank you on my iPad. That's one of the.
Not Sudoku, boys. That's too bad. I thought maybe something we could pick up.
Yeah. You're always looking for something new, aren't you? Something we could pick up, a new game. Let's play this.
Oh, poor thing, shaken with a Sudoku puzzle.
But I love the fact that when they took him to the doctor and all the symptoms were analyzed, the doctor's like, well, the solution is to just stop playing that game, and then the seizures went away because it was attracting the bad part of the brain. So
it's like it reminds me of I had a car dealer. A woman brought her car and she said the antenna made too much noise when she went she'd drive fast, and the antenna would make noise.
Antennas, yeah.
So he goes, I got a quick fix. And she goes, you do.
And screwed it.
So he gets in the car, starts it up, he cranks the radio. Yeah, that's what you do.
And
turn the radio up.
That reminds me of when our last Outback, we had the rear wheel bearings were going. We didn't know it, though. And Emma, my oldest niece, was visiting us for the weekend, and we were driving up to Massachusetts to go to a museum, and that they make noise when they're going. And so we're like, she goes, I hear that noise. And Bob goes, Grump, turns and he goes, no, you don't, with the radio.
Turn the radio up.
And she's like, she goes, Uncle Johnny, she's screaming from the back. She goes, we have the same car. It doesn't make this kind of noise. I'm like, well, ours does. Find out when we go to the dealer. He's like, man, your rear wheel bearings are shot. It's under warranty. I remember when I got in the car after the repair and it was dead quiet, and the radio was like, like the time we were down in Florida and we were, turn it up. Yeah, that was another story. So what was the business birthday today?
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
Celebrating today, although he's dead, he was born October 16th in 1845. He died in 1925 at 79 in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Underwear magnate, Pleasant Haynes. Not a nice name. Pleasant.
So Haynes really is the family name of...
Pleasant.
I wear Hanes T-shirts.
Yeah. So Pleasant, he actually fought for the South in the American Civil War. He served as a special courier for Robert E. Lee. After the war, he and his brother John, now why one brother was named John and one was Pleasant, I don't know. But so John and Pleasant started the P.H. Heinz Tobacco Company, which became the third largest tobacco distributor in the USA.
So someone bought them then, right?
So in the 1900s, they sold the tobacco company to R.J. Reynolds for $175,000 and took their money. They split it.
$175,000?
Yeah.
What year was this?
1900.
Oh, okay.
So they split their money. Pleasant went and made underwear, and his brother John did a sock factory.
There's a joke in there somewhere.
Here's what I don't
figure it out,
understand.
but-
So this was in the early 1900s, let's say 1900. So Pleasant's making underwear, the brothers making socks and stockings. It wasn't until 1962 they merged the two brands and became Hanes brands. So they said,
long.
yeah, which I found odd. They said that they
Ring,
merged.
ring, ring, ring. How's
officially
the underwear
merged.
business? It's good. How's the sock business? Good. Click. I mean,
So there was Hanes Knitting and Hanes Hosiery in 65. In 78, they also had Hanes Consolidated Foods. You know it as Sara Lee. And
that was Sara Lee.
Yep, and they all were purchased together.
Do you remember
by
the
Heinz.
jingle for that?
That's nobody.
Nobody does it like Sara Lee. Yep. We're kids of television. I can't,
So in September '06, Sara Lee spun off its branded clothing to and started another separate company called Hanes Brands Inc., which
Okay.
designed and manufactured and sold a whole number of things. I didn't realize this. So Hanes has Champion,
Yeah.
Playtex,
I didn't know Playtex.
Tally, which I don't know, Just My Size, Barely There, Wonder Bra, Legs, C9 by Champion, Duofold, Beefy Tea, Outer Banks, a whole bunch of others. I didn't realize they had so much stuff. They were famous for their tagline. Do you remember what the tagline was? 1970s.
Oh, something about comfort.
Gentlemen prefer Hanes.
Gentlemen prefer Hanes. That's it.
So they changed it in the 90s to the lady prefers
Prefers
Hanes. And then they brought on Michael Jordan and a bunch of people to
I remember
do
that.
the whole tagless thing. Mm-hmm. Then they brought in Charlie Sheen in '08, but they didn't keep him long because when he went a little crazy. Or his domestic violence
That was
charges.
That's a bad celebrity alignment, I'll say. Yeah.
So Pleasant. Happy birthday, Pleasant.
That is, you'd think the brothers would have said to themselves, "We're in the furnishings business, the undergarments
Right.
business. Why don't we just make it all one big thing, right?"
Yeah, I tried to find out. Interestingly, there's more written about the brother John with the sock business than Pleasant. It was hard to find a lot of information out about him, but I came across it and I thought, well, this is one we haven't done.
Oh my God, you haven't done Hanes at all, and
No.
I did. Greg and I, my old business partner, did a stint for Longhame's Car in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. That's
Who?
where Longhame's Car.
What's that?
They're gone. They were bought by Mullen, the Mullen shop in Boston. But it was ad agency. And
Oh,
we
an
were
ad,
brought
okay.
down to save the Winston cigarette
That's
account.
right. I remember the
I remember
cigarettes.
one time I finished, because we were in the office every day, they'd roll the cigarette cart around, and it stank because
People smoke at their desks?
the client insisted that people smoke in the agency because they're selling cigarettes. And one day I got this, my phone was flashing, and it's you were driving somewhere. Winston tastes bad like the water I just had. No filter, no taste. It's a $3.25 waste or something.
When cigarettes were that cheap.
We actually did come up with great creative.
Did they use it?
Yeah, they did. The first wave we came up with was Shot Down, and that's where I learned that cliche, self-loathing, eureka. The first work that comes out of your head is usually a cliche, and when someone tells that to you, you get upset with yourself. How could I come up with it? Self-loathing. And then in the self-loathing comes the eureka moment where you have and the eureka moment for me was all over Winston-Salem, wherever we went, on the counters of all the delis and stuff, there were free packs, boxes of book matches, and they're all Winston. So I said, Greg, we should do a campaign about Winston matches. Maybe they've been to famous places. So we did this whole thing where it was like a big ad. In the middle was this little to size Winston thing. When we presented those, they were like, oh my God. And the client, I think, ended up using it. But I didn't realize that Hanes was based there because they had an enormous outlet store there.
Oh, so you were in heaven.
And I thought, oh my God, it's Hanes. But it turns out that was one of their main corporate headquarters, right?
Winston-Salem, North
Yep,
Carolina.
there we go.
Yep, and that's where he died.
And that's also where I saw the movie The Orchard House Rules, which was a mainstream movie, but they had it in the art cinema. So for down there, Orchard House, the Orchard House rules was art. All righty.
You understand.
You understand. So, as many of you know, Deep Discount is a partner of ours here on the Focus Group. We would like you to visit them by going to focusgroupradio.com, clicking on their logo, which is a shark. Arr! And I do the pirate for the shark, and the shark's name is Sharky. The puppet may return one of these days with a...
Halloween.
Maybe not. Maybe the week after Halloween. Keep them guessing, right? So this week, folks, the sale is Salute to the Military. And that's a pretty broad one because a lot of movies take place on combat zones or their profiles. What did you pick?
So I picked a movie based on fact. It's an action-packed World War II epic, which co-stars Cliff Robertson, Vince Edwards, Carol O'Connor, and William Holden.
Cliff Robertson, really?
Yeah, and
William Holden.
Right. I had a clip of this on YouTube that I used to watch. So the clip on YouTube, and I didn't know actually it had come from this, so it was kind of funny how I got to the movie. But there's a ragtag group of American military guys and a Canadian...
What war is this?
World War II.
World War II, okay, sorry.
And the Canadians are sending a regiment to come join them, and they're going to have to do this impossible task of going into this Nazi stronghold. And the Americans are all disheveled and tattered, and the Canadians come like you can't believe with the bagpipes and the whole deal, perfectly done with the arms a-flailing.
Yes.
And the Americans are all just standing there looking at them like, I can't believe, look what's coming down the road. And so there's this long, and it's funny to watch because there's this long stretch of this very perfect Canadian military regiment coming, and the Americans just kind of trying to straighten up. But so the story is about this U.S. officer is William Holden, and he gets this, they said he has to form this unit into a cohesive group of what he says are a bunch of ragtag American military convicts and a well-trained Canadian unit. So it's kind of this clash of cultures. It says despite their differences of backgrounds, the mismatched soldiers prove to be a formidable fighting force, which earns them the dangerous mission as they are ordered to capture a nearly inaccessible Nazi stronghold. The movie's called The Devil's Brigade. It came out originally in 1968. You can get it on Blu-ray for $29.95. I'm sorry, for $18.28. It was originally $29.95. You saved close to 40%. So it was funny how I'd come to it because I remember watching the clip and not knowing
the clip sounds amusing. So it's funny that both of us chose movies that the military angle, but there's humor in them.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, World War II is not funny by any means, but it was. But I thought it was interesting because of the kind of this merging of, and that's a lot of what happened in World War II, right? There were a lot of these groups that were just put together to try to do the impossible.
And I love the idea of the Canadians showing up all spit and polish.
They got the Tams on, bagpipes.
And the other guys
the other guys are convicts, essentially. They're American military convicts, all ragtag. So
and they're recruited for the Devil's Brigade.
Devil's Brigade.
All right, so I chose
Based on a true story.
I chose a movie that I believe was actually made into a TV show. I'm not 100. I didn't research it enough. Operation Petticoat.
Yes.
And the original Operation, the very first movie starred Cary Grant and Tony Curtis, as some of you know from Some Like It Hot, and everybody knows Cary Grant. And they serve on the USS Sea Tiger. It's a sub that's on its last legs until the handsome skipper, Cary Grant, is ingenious, if slightly unethical junior officer, of course, Tony Curtis, scavenge the parts and supplies needed to put the sub back into action. Forced out to sea prematurely by an enemy attack, the sub leaks and limps until 5 stranded Army nurses come aboard and initiate their own renovations. So there's 2 versions of Operation Petticoat available. There is a special edition where they show the sub. Remember they paint it pink at one point? But there's a lot of good talent in here. Dick Sargent, Gavin McLeod, Madeline Rue, Marion Ross. Marion Ross was Happy Days, right? So she was one of the nurses on there. So I picked... by the way... Say No More was directed by Blake Edwards. If you know the name, he's the Pink Panther director. So it won an Academy Award for Best Writing, Story, and Screenplay, and I think it's a good movie. Well, so order Devil's Brigade and then watch Operation Petticoat. Yeah. And depending on your fandom, the release this week at Deep Discount Twin Peaks, the television collection on Blu-ray. It's the entire thing. So it's 29 episodes that aired on television. Then there was the Return to Twin Peaks limited event series that was written 25 years
Were you a
later.
Twin Peaks fan?
I began Twin Peaks. We watched
first came on,
season 1,
90s.
and I was obsessed with the log lady,
yes.
the whole bit. And then I kind of, it didn't hold my interest into other,
We had the same thing. We'd get-togethers every week. People would show up with a log, donuts, cherry pie, whatever. And
Exactly.
We'd get to, my friend Kate would host. We'd all go there, and we couldn't wait, and it was great. And then when the little midgets and the little people came in and all that stuff, it went a little nuts.
yeah, it's...
But then people said as it's gone on, if you stayed with it, you probably would have
liked it.
liked it, which maybe we should
No.
revisit.
Someone said this to me the other day. They were talking about a show. They said if you have to stick through the first 4 episodes. No, I don't. If you haven't got me hooked on the first 4, why am I going to bother? And that's the same thing with this. Like, oh no, don't get
Gotta
through.
come back.
No, I'm out.
I did like Twin Peaks, though.
Yeah.
So it's so head over to Deep Discount, own your passion. Get there by going to focusgroupradio.com, click on the Deep Discount logo, and start shopping away. We like it because we get credit. The new release this week is Twin Peaks, the television collection on Blu-ray. For the Salute the Military sale, John picked Operation Petticoat on Blu-ray, and I picked The Devil's Brigade. So two good World War II movies there. Right, Garrett?
Thanks, Deep Discount.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about how the power suit has lost its power. So stay with us.
You're listening to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com. Focus on the savvy side of 9 to 5 with The Focus Group.
Try, really try.
Listen, laugh, and learn with Tim and John.
I never try anything. I just do it.
Welcome back to the Focus Group. During our little break, Tim and I were laughing about the clip that he mentioned before from the Devil's Brigade. Hey, focusgroupradio.com is the URL, the URL. Did we decide what that meant? We did. Someone told me this.
The boys knew.
It's already, look, it's gone in here and it's come out here. Something record locator.
Universal. I don't remember.
Yeah, Universal Resource Locator.
Okay. An URL. Focusgroupradio.com. All right. Article came out recently. It's called How the Power Suit Lost Its Power. The suit was once the uniform of the powerful and a requirement for every man. Now people mostly wear suits when they're in trouble. That's interesting because the article kicks off with the time that back in April of 2018 when Mark Zuckerberg made a rare public appearance on Capitol Hill wearing a suit. And the woman who wrote this says, and these days when you are not in control, you wear a suit. So it's kind of interesting because he came to testify about all the different ads that were purchased by these phantom entities to affect the election, the whole bit.
Right.
But I think he would have been more in his element had he worn a hoodie, right?
Right. Well, the New York Times called it his I'm sorry suit.
Yeah.
I do think men of all different shapes and sizes always look better in a nicely tailored suit. Don't you agree? It's easy. It used to be.
Super easy. It used to be that you had gray, navy blue, maybe a gray flannel, and then you had a bunch of white shirts or blue or whatever, and then you had ties, and you just did your match and you're done, right?
But it's funny, I've talked about this before. If you look at Buzzer TV and then some of the old TV Land or whatever, those other Me TV, people wore suits to go to the movies.
Yeah.
You wore a suit. Everybody put a suit and tie, no matter what your job was really.
Yep.
White collar, you wore a suit and tie. And when we first started out working ourselves, we always wore suits and ties, and you interviewed with a tie on. But lately, if you show up at work with a suit on, they think that you're either interviewing or going to a funeral.
Oh, she says the suit has become a uniform for the powerless. She uses that a lot in the article. And then she goes on to say, or the author goes on to say, when you're in control, at least in relative control, from the C-suite down to the long rectangular table in the open-air office, you wear whatever you want, which is almost never a suit. It is there's the vest or bomber jacket for men, a blouse or a shell top for women. Americans are also buying fewer suits, period. U.S. revenue for men's suits declined to $1.9 billion in 2018 from $2.2 billion in 2013. That's
Still high,
yeah.
I think.
The total number of men's suits sold in 2018 was 8.6 million, or about 0.7 suits per man. How do you even report a statistic like that with a straight face? 0.7? What did you get? The pants and half a jacket? I mean,
Yeah.
I own. How many suits do you own?
Currently, I have 3 or 4, but I can't remember the last time I wore one. Well, last time I wore one, I came up here for something with you. We were visiting a client, but I didn't wear a tie. Oh yeah, you and I went to some event.
Yeah, and I
You had a blazer on with your pants and
but we
slacks.
didn't have. Yeah, but and that's my new thing is navy blue blazer, always that can match with like gray slacks or even with jeans. But that's the closest I come to a suit nowadays. The last time I wore a suit was to a funeral.
Yeah.
And I felt that was very appropriate actually to look that way. But
But if you were going to a job interview,
oh, that's the sticky wicket. Now they claim if you don't do your R&D and try to look like the staff at the company you're going to, and you just show up. You did that once. You showed
got
up in
in
a suit
trouble.
and tie, and you're like,
why
"Why?"
you yelled at me,
Yeah.
and I said, "Well, I'm working,
Yeah.
and where I work, we wear a suit and tie.
Yeah.
So I'm
did
coming
have
here
to.
at lunchtime, unless you wanted me to change." Yeah, guy was an ass. He lost his job soon after,
Did you really?
much to my pleasure.
Schadenfreude. Yeah. Happy the laughter at
He was a
misery of others.
smack-ass. He said to me, he wanted me to. He said, "Yeah, you take your time." He said, "But I'm giving you an assignment during the interview. If you were a, what's the billboard for Tim Bennett? If I drove down the street, what
Oh,
would the billboard
I
be?"
remember you told me
I
that.
said, "I don't need any time."
What did you say?
I said, "I don't need any time."
What was your
He
billboard?
wanted me to. I don't know what he wanted to do. Whether he wanted to go to the bathroom or what. He wanted me to sit and contemplate this billboard. I said, "I don't need any time." He's like, "You don't?" I said, "No." He goes, "Well, what would your billboard say?" I said, "Tim Bennett, I'm busy." As he was writing on a post-it note.
So here's the thing. I don't think well in I don't have I can be fast and I can be quick, but in a situation like that where someone throws an oddball, like a curveball like that, first if you wear a suit to an interview and you're not supposed to wear a suit, that's going to throw you off the rails, right? Like, okay, now I didn't dress.
Well, he said to me, "Why'd you wear?" He goes, "Oh, you're in a suit." I said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm coming from work. I have a."
I always thought
job."
the suit and tie was the fallback. You'll look anywhere you go, you'll be fine.
Well, this guy, a lot of people there had suits on. This was a marketing department where they didn't, and he was loosey-goosey.
But everybody else had
But everyone else
suits.
did. So he was just being an ass, in my opinion. If you expect somebody to come on their lunchtime,
Yeah, from another
interview
company.
from another company, and this is how you dress at the other company, don't expect me to go into your bathroom and put on a pair of jeans and another shirt.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just thought that was foolish.
So there's that throws you off, and then the question, which hey, it's legit. He could ask whatever he wants, but that kind of what would your billboard be?
Yeah, if you John Nash, I'm driving down the street and there's a John Nash billboard. What does it say?
Eat at Joe's. I mean, like, what are you gonna like?
Eat at Joe. I mean, yeah.
Was there a right answer?
Take your time.
Was there a right answer? Did you ever?
I guess I didn't get it because I didn't get the job, but I'm sure he wanted. You know, it's one of those. How many red balls are there in Canada?
Oh, the
Questions.
Google questions. Yeah.
But it was, so what's your billboard say? But I don't think he liked the fact that I didn't let him have time to go off and do what he wanted to do. Because I needed to get out of there. was on my lunch
he
hour.
wanted to give you the
Take all the
assignment.
time you need.
He was going to walk out of the interview, which is
have-
actually not cool.
There's a billboard. I'm driving down the street. What does the billboard for Tim Bennett say? And take your time. You can take all the time you need. I said, I don't need any time. Because I think he wanted to get up and he was going to go have a little bite to eat. Whatever he was going to do, I think he thought he was going to come back in 15 minutes and I was going to have some, amazing billboard. But I told him I had the billboard done already.
I'm busy.
I'm busy.
To get that offer, that job offer to not come through.
He said, what does that mean? And I said, it means that you constantly have to be doing something and learning. And you need to keep yourself busy. You need to keep yourself on top of things. I don't know. It was off the top of my head.
I tell you, this whole thing of finding a job, what we were talking about earlier in the show about college essays, it's mind-numbing. You know, some of the jobs we got were because someone took pity on us or they liked us. They thought we were funny. Yeah, they'll fit in. They'll learn. my second job out of
Hire for attitude, you teach for skill.
my
You train
second
for skill.
perfectly said. My second job out of college, I went to take a typographer's test at this ad agency because I could set type thanks to the college paper I work for. And the woman that was giving the test, Andrea, was a sweetheart. And she saw that I wasn't the fastest typer, but I definitely knew the commands. So she's watching, and when the guy that was kind of proctoring this HR test walks out, she goes, F6, F6. And she starts, like, under her breath telling me what buttons to push. Comes back, he looks at this great. A couple days later, I got an offer to get the job. And when I started there, Andrea personally had me sit next to her, and I'm like, Andrea, I think I owe this to you. And she laughed. She goes, no. She goes, I liked you the minute you walked in. She goes, learning a couple keys, you could do that in a day, But apparently they didn't like everybody else. But see what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
someone shows you a nice little like, yeah, we like you. Come on in. Now you're writing essays and you're coming up with billboards. I did read in Inc. magazine had a fascinating article. This guy who hires people, he said his most fascinating thing happened recently where he asked a young woman, tell me something about yourself that I wouldn't figure out or know from all the stuff that we've looked at. And she actually had the best answer. She said, I recently did, like, she talked about some of her travels, some of her passions, but it was a very personal answer. Like, you would not know this, but I was my dad's favorite, or, like, and he said, it was so honest and so unscripted that he gave her the job. She qualified for it, but he thought that she was so able to just pick that stuff out and not be like a program robot and say, in my last job, I did this, But that doesn't work for everybody.
So I'm wondering if somebody asks you that question, is it supposed to be a personal answer or something about work? I wonder. Tell me something that nobody knows about you. I mean, was that kind of the?
And the minute you said it, I just wanted Yeah, and how personal do you get in that answer, right? Like, because you could, you're not going to tell an interview. Well, people might, but
that's the kind of ones where you just want to come out with the most foul thing on the planet.
Don't you wish?
Tell me something nobody knows about you. I just played myself in the bathroom before I shook her hand.
Stall 3. Yeah. Yeah.
Had my hand down my pants and my junk before I shook your hand.
Could you imagine?
You're hired.
You almost want to do that, though, when someone asks you. Tim loves this story. When I interviewed at Black Rock, which used to be the home of CBS Records, I think it's like 52nd and 6th Avenue, and I had my cheap little gray suit on, my polyester red tie, my big artist portfolio with a zipper that ran around, and you have, and clearly the woman interviewing me she was forced to do it by a superior. She's sitting there, and this is when people could smoke in their offices. She says cigarette.
Which is always great. They have the cigarette.
Comes in.
The smoke is coming off.
And she said, let me see your work. Flaps it down. Zipper. Student work, student work, student work,
Drag.
Student work. And I'm still a senior in college. Yeah. Student work. All right. Then she flips it closed. All right, a few things.
Student work.
So, tell me what, what excites you as a person? Yeah, you're talking to a senior in college in a cheap gray suit and a polyester red tie. And I'm like, well, hanging out with my friends and going to the movies. Because besides hanging out with my friends and going to the movies, and she's like, all I wanted was to get out of there.
Did you get the job?
No, I go back upstairs to the executive that sent me down. He goes, how did you like so-and-so? I said, I don't think it went really well.
Student work.
Student work. Student work.
Student work. Student work.
I will say this: it completely turned me off to this idea of modeling yourself some way to work for a company, because you meet people like this, you're like, wait a minute, if you got an axe to grind.
And I know you took it so personally.
I was very upset.
Oh, I could just. You'd be upset now.
That was a couple weeks after I was flown down by Lord because I was one of the students. Remember, I told you
that's the job you should have taken.
Lord and Taylor assistant
merchant.
buyer. Could have been a merchant.
Right down here on 34th and whatever.
And getting my pink slip as retail goes in the toilet.
Listen,
but I pissed off a lot of kids who went for that because I didn't want to do it. And they knew, but I passed through all the interviews and I was actually offered a job at Lord & Taylor, so I don't know.
We're in New York?
Yeah, right, the flagship store on Fifth Avenue.
You should have done that,
By the
John.
way, you don't want to work there. It's a rabbit warren. Have you seen the offices of a department store? the spare space. If you can't
the rabbit
sell
hole,
something, then you could put a desk there, and that's your office. It was like all the things behind things, little narrow offices where people sat with like 2 feet of space, no window.
I turned down a job at a PR firm in D.C. that did government public relations. And I often wonder, had I done that, how things would have been different for me.
I don't know. I think the steel.
Paid $10,000 less than the steel company.
I think the steel company was a far better.
Well, I went for the money in the car.
It sounds.
But I wonder if I had stayed.
Price
If I
is
wanted,
right.
I love DC, and I
Went for the
always
vacation
wondered. I
package.
certainly wouldn't have had the career probably I had at Subaru and all those other things of who you met along the way. So, but I often wonder what would have happened. You know, it's one of those things of luck that comes in or intercedes.
So let's take that example of that.
If you took the Lord and Taylor job, you probably would have never had your own agency.
And let's take the example of that CBS interview. Let's say that woman was in a great mood. She wasn't smoking a Benson Hedges Light 1 trillion, whatever it was, with the ash hanging off, and that ashtray was stuffed with butts. and let's say it was a good interview, and she knew that I was a student, but she liked who I was, and maybe I want to be an art director at CBS Records. No, actually, I would have been like a production artist or an assistant of something. Where would you go, right? It's fascinating to me, those things that occur, and actually, my very first job out of college was working for an Orthodox Jewish company out in Brooklyn called Cosmos Forms. And I was an art director designing business forms. Remember the triplicates and the carbon lists? Someone had to do those. And I learned all about the Orthodox culture, and I worked with some great people. And I was, what was I on Friday? I was the Shabbos Goy. So on Friday, they leave, but I was the last one to leave because I had the keys and I could lock up, and then that led me to Manhattan, and then from there, it's just it is when you look back, right?
There's a lot of luck that gets involved. Not always good luck.
True. Yeah.
So thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thanks to Garrett and Robbie, Bobby, and Steve, our boys in the booth. Thank you for listening to us here on the Focus Group. Be sure to catch us every Wednesday at 1 p.m. East. Also, our Tuesday podcast, which is TFG Unbuttoned. Thanks to our friends at Deep Discount. It's a Salute the Military sale. If you go to focusgroupradio.com, click on the Deep Discount logo. I picked The Devil's Brigade. John picked Operation Petticoat. And the new release this week is Twin Peaks, the television collection. We hope you all have a good week. And remember, don't text and drive. Arrive alive. See ya.
It's The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.